The VSL problem, a problem as old as the funnel itself, where your salespeople will consistently complain about the quality of the leads that show up comparatively to your organic funnels. Your webinar funnels crush, your challenge funnels crush, hell, even your DM ad strategies crush. But you know, and you've constantly heard stories about people that are running these direct call funnels, where they're running paid advertising, getting people to show up to a call, and they're just banking deals. They're few and far between nowadays, to be fair, because a lot of people have given up on the traditional call funnel. For us, it consistently crushes, but there are some specific supplement campaigns that we've talked about on this channel time and time again when you're on your path to hitting $1 million months that you have to add. They're mandatory, they're non-negotiables. Otherwise, you get stuck in this position where you're constantly having to go live to bring in qualified buyers that your salespeople can close. At the end of the day, there's a specific function that you have to play in your business to rotate through different solutions on the marketing side before you can officially blame your salespeople and adapt to the sales side of the equation. So I'm gonna walk you through some of the best practices that we find today in our $1 million a month deals. We have these same best practices running in an account right now that does $5+ million a month. However, I wanna be very clear when I say this. The probabilities of hitting $1 million months are 0.1% according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that stat, by the way, is for businesses that hit $10 million a year. So to get to $12 million a year, the big $1 million months all year long, you have to be amongst literally 0.1% of the business owners on earth that achieve those numbers. That indicates that 99.99% of people out there, just like Purell, are getting wiped out, are struggling, are stuck at only a couple $100,000 a month and never achieve or even break out of what the United States government considers a small business, which is under $40 million a year. I'm here to help you get richer. That's my goal. And this piece of content that I've got for you today is no different. Welcome to the video. My name's Jeremy Haynes. All we talk about on this channel is hitting $1 million months. I pass down all the lessons from the 40 different people currently, and that number grows, by the way. 40 different businesses that we've helped get there, and I just pass down the lessons from what they've achieved, what they've done, what they've made work, what made them fail and what held them back. And I try to pass them down to you in these bite-sized, put you on game forms of content here on YouTube. So welcome in. If you're new, I'd appreciate you subscribing and checking out some of my other videos after you watch this one. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. It's a pleasure to have you. I got another banger for you here today. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive in. So, your salespeople call you up and they start whining. They start getting a little bitchy and they say things like, man, these leads that are coming through on my calendars, they're not hot enough yet. They'll say more sophisticated things when you've got the right salespeople that are just a little more articulate. They'll say things like they're too early in the sales process. And to be fair, your salespeople might not be wrong. And that's one thing that you really got to consider. If we map the sales process, okay, where initially it starts with awareness, okay, and this is the key thing that you have to understand. Awareness is you running an ad to the person and just getting the person aware of who you are, okay? From there, at the very end of the process, we obviously have the close where we officially capture some money and get a deal done. After the awareness step, usually there's some type of direct response that hits that individual, and it might take a few times, to be fair, where they see that ad before they actually take the action, okay? Now, there's two types of people, and this is very important to understand. This is why this problem happens so frequently. You don't think that there's two types of people. You just think that there's one type of person, okay? Here's the two different types of people. Person number one will binge watch a fuckload of your long form content, your short form content. They'll look you up. They'll already be sold on the idea of whatever it is that you're selling and talking about, and making products and services to help solve, okay? They come through your funnel more than happy to go through videos before they talk to your salespeople. They'll watch your pre-call homework. They'll happily show up to your 90-minute or fucking 3-hour-long webinar. They are enthused with the opportunity that you're gonna host a 3-day live event, you know, and walk people through a challenge funnel, even if it's evergreen and not actually live, okay? That type of person, person number one, will need a lot of framing, but they'll do the framing first, which is what your salespeople love. That's what your salespeople are consistently talking about that they want, because all your salespeople have to do on those types of people is close them. There's nothing else they have to do. There's no education on those calls, because all the education happened prior to the sales call. And that's the key. What your salespeople bitch about is when person number two shows up. Person number 2 is a completely different type of person. Person number 2 prefers to talk to your sales team to get their information and education about whether they want to do whatever it is you're selling them on. That's what your salespeople fucking hate. Person number 2, and here's the very important thing to understand, they're not going to watch any of your videos. They fucking hate webinars. They feel like webinars are a scam. They're not going to invest 90 minutes to 3 hours of time before they show up and get on a sales call with your team. They view that as a complete fucking waste of their time. Person number 2, they're in no way, shape, or form going to commit to consumption from damn near anything from your brand. They might not even click through on your page and watch literally anything about your business until they have that sales call, if they even deem your sales call worth showing up to that they booked. Person number 2 requires the sales call to be first. And after they get on the sales call, they treat it like an education call rather than a sales call. So they're going to get on the phone. They're going to ask the salespeople the questions that your salespeople are going to be like almost annoyed by, pissed about. Where the salesperson's like, dude, I mean, we have so much content that you could assume consumed before this call to like get these same answers, you know? And your salespeople, they're going to say that person number 2 is not qualified when that's the furthest thing from the truth. And that's what's critical to understand for why you have to remember there's 2 types of people. Otherwise, you don't adapt your marketing and your sales processes around the 2 types of people that clearly exist. Person number 2, they're not unqualified. By no means are they unqualified. Your sales process just only is currently built for person number 1. That's what you struggle with. That's the main issue you have. You haven't addressed it from that perspective. And that's why you listen to your salespeople and you think to yourself, I guess we only got to do webinars from here forward. Shut off the paid ads. Let's just stick to organic, you know? Let's go back to what was working. And you never actually commit to trying to figure out the underlying issue and solve the problem. It's not a hard problem to solve. It will take a little bit of time. It will take some adaptations in what you do. And I'll give you some of those adaptations right now so you can understand. Remember, and this is very important to understand, person number 1 is all for framing first, okay? They are a framing first person. They love going through long form. They're built for strategies like my new Venus Flytrap 2.0 strategy. They love webinars, challenge funnels. They're happy to DM back and forth with your business. Anything and everything that you've got that this person can consume pre-call, they're going to go through. We had an inner circle member earlier today who was complaining about their show rate. And I was like, hey, share over your current pre-call marketing automation. Share it in a Google Doc. Put it together for us. And he used the word homework like a dozen times in the first 3 emails. Person number 1, I mean, they're happy to go through your homework, but literally every person on earth, really think about this real quick. Who in the fuck has a positive mental association to the word homework? Nobody. There's not, I mean, I can think of a handful of nerds I went to school with that were enthused about their homework and like protected it and didn't let you copy answers and stuff. But here's the thing, literally everybody else, they fucking hated homework. No kid went home excited, like, oh man, I gotta go do my homework now. You know, leave me alone, I gotta do my homework. No, dude, we were doing that shit like the class before, just copying people's answers, okay? That's person number 2. You feel me? Person number 2 is not doing your fucking homework pre-call. They're not consuming any of that shit. They show up to the call for answers, all right? And that's what's important to understand. They use the call for education. You feel me? So they show up to the call for education. This is what you have to understand. This is what you're missing currently, okay? So when your salespeople that you currently have on the phones right now are not adapted to the fact that these 2 types of people exist and they act like everybody can somehow be pigeonholed into being person number 1, which isn't how people work, as you know, okay? What ends up happening is your salespeople give you this feedback. Oh, dude, the leads aren't ready to buy yet. And to be fair, I mean, just to be fair to them, I mean, they're not wrong. Like this first half of the sales process here, where somebody's going through like the awareness and they officially took the action. I mean, yeah, there's this pre-call framing that occurs. And we've talked about this before. I think literally in the video prior to this, where we've talked about short form, we've talked about long form, and then we've talked about the salesperson, like the salesperson having their manual influence, okay? And this part specifically, this is where a lot of people struggle, okay? You want to build it as though everybody's a person number 1. That's fair, okay? Specifically for the pre-call framing, like the marketing automation. Yes, send people a bunch of stuff to consume before the videos. Yes, use the hammer them strategy and fucking slap them with tons of content, short form and long form before the calls. Absolutely. But remember, you're still gonna get a chunk of people that are person number 2. What are you gonna do with them? You're just gonna act like they're unqualified and just boot them from your funnel every time? Believe it or not, that's a solution that a lot of sales teams and businesses ponder. They do actually consider that if you can, I mean, you probably might be one of them, you know, that just think, well, yeah, I would boot them from the funnel. Here's here's what I propose, okay? So because person number 2, they show up to the call for education, it's pretty simple, right? The first call should be with an educator. And this is the ultimate tip of this video that I want you to understand, okay? The educator. That's the role that you're currently missing. You need a person in your sales organization, and ideally this eventually becomes a few different people, where if a lead shows up, and these people, by the way, like they might text you ahead of time and say like, yeah, you know, I plan on showing up. When you try to get in contact with them manually, you might hear a word from them, you might not, but when they do show up and they just start asking questions that your main salespeople can tell are just education based, there should be an educator in real time that's available to be able to talk to that person, okay? That's what you got to understand. There has to be somebody that they can essentially like live transfer to, that salesperson can reach out to and say, it could be a setter, it could be a closer, but here's my point. The setter or the closer that gets that type of lead on the phone, they have to have somebody that they can dish it to. That's the educator. The educator is essentially just a setter, but instead of a setter that's actively trying to just qualify to then set a closing call, no, that's not what this educator does. The educator does a much more advanced function. They just essentially present webinars on a one-on-one basis, okay? And you might think a little bit less highly of person number 2 when you hear some of these characteristics, but I mean, this is how it is. They think they're special, okay? They do not like anything about your webinars. They think your webinars are awful. They don't think they learn well in a group setting. Essentially, here's the main thing to understand about them without making person 2 sound like they're just awful people, because they're not. They're qualified people. They just go through the buying process differently, okay? Person number 2, they want to get the answers they're looking for in a faster way. Like they don't want to have to sit there and just twiddle their thumbs on your webinar waiting for the answer that they're actually looking for. They want to show up to your fucking sales call and ask the questions that they actually have, okay? That's the key. That's the difference between person 1 and person 2. Person number 1 is enthused to not only get the answers that they seek out, they're happy to sit there and get smashed with as much content and framing material as you can give them. Person number 2, though, they're only seeking answers to the things that they care about getting answers to. They don't give a fuck about anything else. It pivots though. So here's the problem, right? The dilemma in its finest form. You've got framing that you want to have occur first, and then you want the sales call to happen or the conversion event to occur, okay? And that's how you want every person to come through the funnel. When in reality, for person number 2, you have to switch it. The conversion event, the call in this case, has to happen first, and then the framing material can happen. And only then can the framing material happen. For person number 2, even if you're used to a traditional 1-call close, it becomes a 2-call close model when you adapt to person number 2. Now, I want to be very fair when I say this. Almost every business that comes to us that's around that like couple $100,000 a month mark somewhere in there, okay? We see them get all the way up to sometimes even like high couple $100,000 a month. And you look at who they're selling to, it's always an exclusively person number 1. Whereas when you look at the businesses that are over $1 million a month, they have mastered this specific problem solved scenario, and they've adapted their sales process and their marketing process to incorporate things like the Venus Flytrap 2.0, the Hammer Them strategy, sophisticated pre-call framing with strategies like our Trust Flywheel, and they adapt their sales process to have roles like the educator. That's the difference. That's the key. That's what makes the extra money, is being able to sell to both demographics, being able to take the framing and then the call and switching them to being able to have the call and then the framing. Makes a huge difference. You can't undermine that as a strategy. And you really got to look at your business and ask yourself, like, are you adapted to currently doing one or the other, or are you adapted to being capable of doing both? And in the rare instance, and this actually does happen, to be fair, there's some people who are so awful at selling to person 1 because they don't have any content. They don't have any pre-call material. They don't have any like consumption, they don't have anything that's like an indoctrination related sequence. They only have person number 2 business models where they get people on the phones and that's how they do all their selling. It's a minority of instances. It's not necessarily rare. It's just a minority of instances. We'll find businesses that are exclusively good at selling to person number 2. So vice versa to you, my friend. You can make a fuckload more money too if you start learning how to adapt to person number one tactics. You gotta do both. That's the key. You gotta do both. We teach strategies like this in depth. We make sure, we literally audited. Today, we had like 4 people at once share their pre-call sequences, their pre-call content, and we spend time, not only me as the person being paid, but as a group, auditing and analyzing all these different pre-call framing techniques and indoctrination sequences. We do that in my Inner Circle offer. Twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls, quarterly in-person masterminds right here in Miami, Florida. And on top of that, that group chat I just referred to, it is extremely active and it's full of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. All I talk about on my channel is hitting $1 million months. Go check out some of my other videos. I'd love for you to consume them. They're very helpful. We had a recent Inner Circle member who just joined in, Jerome and his business partner. They had already made money. And this is what I talked about in one of my previous videos. I build all my content on YouTube so you can turn around and actually make some money with this stuff. You know, not a ton of money, but enough money where you have house money is what we call it. You walk into a casino with $1,000. You gamble that $1,000. You make back $2,000. You put your original $1,000 back in your pocket. Now you got $1,000 free and clear. That's house money. That's the goal of my channel. I'm trying to make you some cash so you can comfortably pay the house money to us for one of our offers. That's the whole point of all this stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you go out there and get richer. If you're not subscribed to my channel, do me a favor, subscribe. We drop twice a week videos around here. And again, go check out all my content. It's all geared towards helping you make big money, the $1 million months. At the least, I'm trying to improve your odds to make that possible for you. The odds are infinitely low. 0.1%, 99.9% of people out here not hitting those numbers. But hey, 40 people we've helped over the last decade have done it. And I'm definitely not saying that you're going to be one of them, but I will say this. Learning what they do sure does help at least make a little bit more money beyond what you're making now in almost all instances. But again, not an income claim. Your probability to make money with literally any of this is probably near zero. Do your research, understand the facts, understand the odds. But hey, go enjoy some of my videos either way. See you in another one. Bye.